Hey everybody, welcome to the Going Analog Podcast, the show where board game industry guests bring their own topics and games to discuss. I'm Christina, your host, and with us today is a very special guest, our editor I talk about every episode. So joining us is Mike Zipkin. Hi Mike.
Hi Christina, it's so good to be here again. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while since you've been on our show, and then I like on the calendar invite, Shu put it as guest, not guest, you? So
our non-guest
welcome
guest.
Back.
Yeah, I guess
and so Mike, we always give him a lot of crap for this, but he has great beige taste in games usually, but also does like, a lot of games because he hosts a lot of game days up in the Bay too. So it's sort of funny because he's with Shu recording at the same time physically, and I am far away now. I'm the one in the Bay Area. But we wanted to talk about some really interesting things that came up. We got a bunch of this sort of like newer word games that we want to discuss. And then with Mike here also, we definitely want to talk about what topic did you bring for us, Mike?
So people usually know me as like the upgrade guy who upgrades all of his games. And so I've been doing a lot of that, but this time I wanted to talk about upgrades that are not specific to specific games, but they're actually there to upgrade your game room and upgrade all of your games.
Yes, bring your gaming to that next level, everybody. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, Shu is here too. Hi, Shu.
Hello. Thanks for having me on, Christina. Huh?
What? Huh?
I said thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It was a tough decision. It was between you and, our garage ghost today, but it's fine.
This is really the Christina show. We're both non-guests.
Yeah.
That's the whole world. This is the Christina world, and you're just guests on my world.
We're just living in it.
As we get started as usual, we wanted to also talk about a game to highlight. So let's start with Shu. Which game are we talking about today?
So we just got in Captain Flip from the publisher, and it's a Spiel des Jahres nominee. So that means it's one of the big games, the German Game Awards that they have every year. Usually they recognize a few games in different categories, different weight categories. And then this is one of them. So Captain Flip, this is a really simple game from the designer of Ethnos and the designer of Libertalia, the original designer. And basically, you have this giant bag of tiles, and they're different pirates that staff your pirate ship. And you have in front of you a map of this pirate boat. So there's different places where you put this kind of your team and your staff. You don't call it a pirate staff. Your crew. The staff.
There's a word for it.
Yeah, I'm like too much work in work mode. But so there's different columns and different squares that you put these people in, and you have to place them from bottom up. So and then when you grab a tile, you have to look at one side. You can't look at the back side, and you have to make a decision at that moment. Like, do I want to keep what I see, the front side, or do I flip it to the back side and then take that? But if you make that decision, you can't go back. So you're kind of taking a gamble, and every draw you make, you're taking a small gamble. Like, I like what I just drew, or I'm going to just take a chance to see what's on the other side and be stuck with that one. And then all these tiles have to be placed in your ship. And then there's different bonuses, like one character's like, hey, they're going to score 2 coins for every character in their row. Or this one
it's
is
only one, but yes.
Yeah. Or there's like, here's your character who's like, they'll get 4 extra points if they're at the end of the game. They're at the very top of their column. That's a lookout. Or there's like a parrot, I think, is the one that flips another tile next to it. So then you could chain combos of like, oh, I remember.
So the parrot is the one where you lose a coin, but you get an extra tile. The monkey is the one.
The monkey's the flipper.
Christina, you should explain this game. I'm doing a terrible job.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But you teach the game too, so
Yeah. So there are different characters that you could draw, and then sometimes you're like really hoping, like there's the Swabby, where if you collect sets of them, the more of them you have in your ship, the more points you get. So it's a really light game, but it's just kind of really fun and quick because you just like draw a tile, place it down, maybe gather some money, and then you're hoping to get the most. But you don't know exactly who's going to win because there's end game scoring. There's immediate scoring for some tiles and end game scoring for other tiles. And the 3 of us got to play it. We played a couple of times. The game comes with 4 different maps that everyone would choose the same map. Not map, the ship, right? So, and then they might give different bonuses based on how you complete the columns and things like that. So, yeah, super light game. What did you all think? Like, Mike, what did you think?
Well, Christina knows you just go for the Swabby strategy. That's the
It just
strategy.
happened. They just know I'm the best manager, so of my staff on my pirate ship.
The staff manager.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it was really fun, really attractive art. I could see why it was nominated for the Spiel, and I definitely, enjoyed it. I think, but yeah, it's just I want to see like a little bit more. Like I'd love it if they had more expansions. It seems like after you've played it a couple of times, like I don't know how different each game would feel, but it was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
I
did you
played
think,
it a
Christina?
lot on BGA with Eric Yurko of What's Eric Playing, and so played it a lot. So it didn't get too old. It was very fast online too, but it's a fast game in general. So I think it's very in line with the Spiel des Jahres nominees lately. Very fast introductory games for people with small decisions. But I noticed he got really ruthless about ending the game quickly on me. And so there is some strategy to that if you do play it quick. And like, I don't pay as much attention when I play online as I would in person. But that's sort of I think, an element that you can really take advantage of in that too. So yeah, super quick game. Great filler, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't think much of it when I played it on BGA, Board Game Arena. I played it a couple times online, but I was telling Christina while we were playing the real life version, the physical version, that's like, oh man, this is so much better in person because you see the other players, like people are all kind of
Yeah.
getting angry at each other, like not really angry, but like, Christina got another swabby, like how is she so lucky? And so you have those kind of that kind of banter at the table, but also reaching into a bag and drawing it. We all kind of like started slamming it down, right? So and then revealing it with our hand, so you can see what's underneath. And then it was like, no, that's not what I wanted. Or oh, Christina got another swabby, and things like that. Or you take a gamble, and it's like because there's one character called the Gunner gives you a ton of points, but if you get 3 of them, you're gonna lose the game. So there's like little gambles like that. So I think this kind of game is meant to be played in person because digitally, then you just like flattening it down to the pure mechanics, and it's like it's okay. It's a very light game. But it's fun to play in a group of people and kind of seeing what people are drawing. And you're also stealing this treasure map. Is it the cartographer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have the treasure map, you get another coin at the end of your turn, and then people are constantly stealing it from each other. So I do like this much better as an in-person game than a digital.
Yeah, and I think that actually that brought up like when I played it with 4 players versus 2. I think that with 2 players you can be more cutthroat about it. There were times when Eric like just ended the game when I had exactly 3 gunners when I didn't have a chance to flip one of them yet, right? Where
Right.
you're not going to pay
Smart.
attention to that much when there's like 3 other players. So
Right.
so pretty different, like a slightly different take on it depending on the player count, which is interesting.
Yeah. And I think since it is a Spiel nominee, it has to work as a family game. I think that's what they tend to look for is like simple
Yeah.
family weight rules. And I think this definitely would work well. With
Yeah, and
kids
like I think
probably
Shu says that's always
growing up.
the thing that works well for family games too is like you can't always exactly tell who's winning. Like obviously it was me, but usually you can't tell. And so like even when you're playing with kids, like there's a chance that they're like, oh, they're close, or like I did really well on this, so it'd be fun for everybody.
So did Christina win both her games Friday night?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that was not fun. It didn't give us the rest of us any chance to kind of check out what it's like to win the game. But
No,
yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's so
people were close.
yeah. We were waiting for the other table to wrap up their game, but they were like, I think we got 20 minutes left to go, and we're like, and then we all looked at each other like we could squeeze in one more game. So yeah, it's a very fast playing game, family weight, but like I said, I think it's really fun to play in person, and that energy of like drawing and seeing what people are getting is it's so much different than it is online.
Yeah, it's a good filler for gamers and families.
And since I did not win Mike's game, Mike, what game did you bring for us today?
So I brought over a game to show you guys that I've been loving a lot lately. The original is called StreetCar. Actually, the original might be called Linie Eins. It's a German game from 1995 by Stefan Dora, who did For Sale. And so he designed this game where it's a tile laying game, and I have the San Francisco version, just to be specific. So it's a tile laying game, and you're reaching into a bag and pulling tiles and playing 2 tiles on your turn, and you're trying to create a route to connect your train station to the other train station that you have. You have 2 on the board. Everybody has 2, and you get assigned a train and a station and a route in secret, and you kind of have to keep things a little hidden, what you're going to be doing at the beginning of the game versus later in the game once everybody knows where you're going. And so it's an interesting arc where you're starting out the game trying to deceive people with where you're going, but also trying to focus on what your goals are. And then once you have your route built, you have to show everybody where you're planning to go, and then it's a roll off. So as soon as you put your train on the board and you start doing your route, it's a roll and move at that point. But it's a fun race at the very end, and there is a lot of luck involved, as Christina will tell you. She had some bad luck with tile pulls, and there can be a lot of room for screwage if you like that. I like games with high interaction between the players, so. Yeah, so I think it's a cool game arc. It's a fun 45-minute game, and I really enjoyed it. So, what about you guys?
Do you want to go first, Christina?
I don't think it was 45 minutes for us. I don't know why. Maybe we're just slow, but I liked the idea of it a lot. But I was like, he said I had some bad luck. No, my whole game was bad luck, basically, right? So the rails that you can put out as you're building out your streetcar or cable car in San Francisco, there's very simple rails that are straight or single curves. Then you can upgrade these with more complex tiles that have more curves or more directions available to them. And then there's a third level where they're fully upgraded, where there's several routes going through that tile. Essentially, after my very first pull, I had only basic tiles for pretty much the rest of the game, and until everybody else was rolling already, and I was stuck still trying to build my route because I was stuck in a very crowded area. And then it got immediately redirected because I didn't know what were the types of tiles that could come out. So I was like, oh, okay. So if I put a tile here that has and I skip a tile with a straight, I should be able to connect this fairly easily with later. And that was not true because our friend Uli from the UK was visiting, and he got a bunch of tiles that would turn and force you to go in another direction. And I couldn't, because I was pulling really, really basic tiles, I could never fix it. So despite trying to go around, there were several fixes I needed to make, and I never got any tiles until everybody else was pretty much done with the game. So I was very frustrated. So I think maybe a more modern design would have the upgraded tiles in a different pool, perhaps, where it could be a little bit more evened out, the distribution of how to get those upgraded tiles. But I had a tough time with this one. So, yeah.
How old is the game, the original game?
1995.
Yeah, it is definitely an older game, and it has some charm. I went through this journey of the first kind of maybe third or half of the game. I'm oh, this is quite puzzly because you have to think about the route. So one of the things, Christina was saying, you can upgrade a tile. Let's say it's a straight path, and then maybe you have a tile that's a straight path, but also a curve. You can play that legally as long as you don't break the original path. So that original path always has to be available, but you can branch off from it. You can create new branches. So I was oh, this is really neat because people would put down tiles that weren't helping you connect your route, your secret objective. And then you're but that's okay. If I get the right tile, then I could kind of still curve off of that in a proper way and all that kind of stuff. So I really like that puzzle. But then definitely luck played a factor as well. Christina had it way worse. So it's it wasn't noticeable for me that much. But I was also super behind. And then it's a weird, because in the second phase, once you complete your route, then as Mike said, you do a roll off. You're just rolling and moving your car as quickly as possible. There's a few stops that you're forced to make, but the person to complete the route wins. So that part, it didn't feel good to have 3 people out of 5 already in that phase. And then you're still I can't, I need to get the right tiles to complete this route. And then they're just moving and you're okay, there's zero way I'm going to win now. There's just a point where Christina and I are there's zero chances for us to win. So you kind of have to get out of that mentality of okay, hey, it's a light game. You're going to lose sometimes. You're just going to have bad luck. That's okay. But that first part of the game is so strategic. That's what feels weird to me. It's oh, the whole game is not just hey, it's really light and breezy and fun. And you might lose, but that's okay because you're going to play again. The first part's really strategic, I think. We're kind of thinky. And then you go into this really lucky part. and then you get do things that might be completely out of your control that you can't win. So that's my kind of disconnect with the game. But I really like that initial, when you're drawing the tiles and trying to figure out that build your route part of the game.
I think it would be awesome if you guys were willing to give it a second try, because I think now that you know what the arc looks like and what the pieces could be, I think having played it twice myself now, I can sort of see how I can, like, where my shortcomings, like I have to sort of like shore up those areas and like focus on like where to build the paths that I know I need, that I have at the moment. But I think giving it a second try, I think you guys might come out a little bit different with a different, take on the game.
As long as I don't play with Uli. So sorry, okay. Uli, you're a really nice guy, but I'm just saying.
Poor Uli. He's not even here to defend himself.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it were shorter, and it is relatively short. Yeah, like I don't mind trying it again, but I just find this utter randomness, like just super random. So like even because of the way my stations were randomly positioned to that I needed to hit from where my start and end were, I had a big issue with like, it was like right in the middle of like two other trains that were like trying to leave, and they all needed to go to that same station, and that caused a huge like mess for me, basically. So. Let's move on to our topics. So our topic today is we got in a bunch of new word games, which I love. I love word games. And so we're all going to talk about, and then I think Meg was able to play 3 of the 4 with us. So that's exciting. We'll all talk about our experiences with some of these newer games and which ones stood out and are great for different situations. So let's start with Chu. What's one of the word games that we wanted to bring up today?
Okay, so Friday night we ended the night with a game called Mind Map, and I believe I should have looked this up before. I think it's by Sorry We Are French, the publishers, but I'll look that up.
I love that name.
Yeah. So the basic idea is if you lay out the board, it's not much of a board, but you
like
lay
an
out
X and a Y.
Yeah, there's an X-axis and a Y-axis. So it looks like you're doing a graph chart, a flat 2-dimensional chart. And then you're going to have based on number of players. So we played 7 players. We maxed out. There's 7 word cards that are drawn randomly. And then each one is assigned a number. So one might be a frying pan is number 1. A golf club might be number 2, and so on. So these are just on a table for everyone to see. Then on the Y-axis, you'll put one criteria, like something you might welcome aliens with, or something that grandparents might have, something like that. That's like one axis. The other axis, you draw another random criteria, and it might be another category like that. And then it's like perfect wedding gift or something like that. Then in the middle of the x-axis and the middle of the y-axis, where they meet in the middle of this graph on the table, you put another random word card. So I think the first one we had was actually frying pan, right? So basically between the 2 criteria on the x and y axis and that one card in the middle, it sets like, this defines the parameters of this graph. Now you deal out random numbers to people blind, or no one else can see. Then you're assigned one of those 7 words on the side. Then you have to put a little marker on the table in this graph of your color to say where it is, right? Like compared to the word in the middle with these 2 criteria on this X and Y axis, I am way up in the upper right corner. So really high on the X and Y axis. Which means, like in the previous examples, maybe this is my word that I drew is fantastic for aliens, but and also a great anniversary gift. Or my word, maybe you swing it down one axis and it's like, it's a terrible gift, but it's great for aliens, or something like that, right? So you just have to figure out what the parameters. And then I think if you just listen to the audio podcast, you kind of have to go look at a picture. It might be a little bit clearer what I'm trying to describe, but basically, what it comes down to, after everyone puts down their little points of like, this is where my word would sit in this X and Y axis graph, then everyone has to vote to see, I think Christina's little green marker is the number 3 word. And then Shu's yellow marker is the number 7 word. And then we flip those over and see who's right. You get points for people got yours right, and you get points for guessing other people's right. So I don't know if I could do it justice without you kind of looking at it or playing it, but it turned out it was like, this is a really fun party game. Like we had a lot of laughs. It kind of reminds me of games like Wavelength, where it's all super subjective, right? It's like, it's a very, what does this person think? And then we'd have arguments, right? Like someone, what was one of the funny examples?
I was like, what's more useful for the aliens, like a leopard print, underwear or a wig?
Or a wig.
Like,
Yeah.
How do you determine that?
Yeah.
It's like so close.
And then inevitably, as these types of games go, like if you played Wavelength, which is another, like, you're trying to guess what someone's thinking sort of thing in a range, because there's two axes and then there's this wide range of different opinions. Inevitably, you're going to be like, when things are revealed, you start like, what are you talking about? Golf clubs would make a great anniversary gift. Or like, why would you give a frying pan to aliens and things like that? And then you'd have these really ridiculous conversations. But because the game sets up the two criteria and the kind of anchor word in the middle, they're all so random that it just comes with all these constantly crazy scenarios. So I thought it was like a really neat game, really simple to play. People understood how to play it immediately. You only play 3 rounds, so it's really fast. It's not like everyone gets a turn to do something. It's just like 3 rounds. Like, I think we probably took like less than a half hour to play a full game, maybe like even 20 minutes. And then it was just like a lot of fun. People were like laughing and yelling at each other, like talking crap about each other's responses and things like that. But
yeah, it reminded me a lot of Cross Clues with the X and Y sort of thing happening. And it was like if you put Cross Clues and combined it with Wavelength.
yeah,
It's less of a word game to me as it's more of like just like a personality sort of like
that's true.
game. But it was fun. As soon as we were done, if it wasn't 12:30 at that point, I would have been like, let's play one more time. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it didn't overstay its welcome, I thought. And it was like, because it's super random. Like the one that you would put in the middle to sort of set the standard of both of the axes, you're like, why is this there? But we'll work with it, So, even if you had like a tough one to place, it was like only 1 round out of 3 and you were going to be done really fast. And everybody was in it. I don't think anybody was like super, super horrible. Shoot, you were sort of in the back, Shoot, but no.
I think I got last place, but
yeah. But you weren't like that far behind. So it's like a fun little party game. I enjoyed. My funniest thing was when she was explaining the game, he mixed up the X and Y axis. So, oh my gosh,
embarrassing.
So embarrassing.
I know. Yeah, Christina, like, who teaches math, and I know math. I know which one's the X and Y axis.
Sure, you do.
I just got it mixed up. But yeah, there's other funny situations that will come up with, like, you're like, okay, when it's time for the reveal and scoring, it's like, all right, my word was the television, right? And then you're just confident everyone voted for you because you're like, I placed it perfectly in the graph. People are definitely voting. You flip over all the voting tokens, and none of them are your number because everyone thinks differently, or they thought something else was the number 3 card or whatever.
Right. Or conversely, when everybody does pick it, you feel so good. You're like, yeah.
It's so rewarding because it's not just like guessing where you are positioned on this X and Y axis, but you're also guessing how it in position next to other words because you'll see the other words and you're like, oh, if golf club's on there, that's got to be the farthest on the X axis. So this next one must be that. But then again, not everyone thinks the same. Inevitably, it all falls apart, and it's just really hilarious. So yeah, I think it's a highly recommended party game.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about Mike? Which game did you bring for us today?
So I didn't bring it. Actually, you brought it, but it's Word Traveler, and it's a really fun game that I enjoyed much more than I expected. So it's kind of like if you've ever played So Clover, where you're doing these word associations, and what you're looking at is you have a map of a city. So there's Tokyo, London, Paris, and some others. New York. We played the Tokyo side, and so. Everybody starts with their piece in the center, and you have a little hidden map, kind of like in code names, where the tiles that are worth points. And so you're trying to get everybody, and then you have you have arrows that you point in different directions, and then you have words that you place that are explain like where you're going on the map. And so you might have a sign or like a spot on the board that's like karaoke microphones. And so you might have a card that says, loud or something. And then on the other side, it'll be the opposite. It'll say not loud. So every card has, a yes, it is, or, like a sticky or not sticky type of thing. So you have these cards and you're placing them where you want people to guess where you're going and try to deduce where you're trying to head because your maps are all different. So I might be saying, loud, and then my next place might be to go over here to the sumo wrestling, and so I'll say like huge or something like that. And sometimes the pictures are so close that you have to be very careful not to mislead people, because they might accidentally think you're going somewhere else, and so you have to be very careful. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It combines that sort of the sort of word game that I like to play on the New York Times connections. I love playing connections.
I love connections every night.
My family and I were always like, "Did you get connections today?" And so it's a very big game in our house. So combining that with traveling is like amazing to me. Like I love traveling. I've been to Tokyo. I've been to many of the cities, and I'm just like, this is perfect for me and my family. And if I were to introduce it to my family or to other people, I think they would really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a copy from Office Dog, the publisher, and then Mike liked it so much, and we're like, Mike does all this work for us at like he's criminally underpaid working for Ghana because we don't make any money here, and it's like or like, Mike, you can have our copy of this game.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, I can't. Yeah. Now I don't have to. I was like looking at BGG, like, where do I buy this? And you're like, here you go. So
and now it's
thank
yours.
you guys. That was so sweet.
What I really like about Word Traveler too is like when you give those clues about where the stop should be. You have like a bunch of cards in your hand. Each one has like a positive and a negative version of it. So it could be huge and not huge, or aromatic, not aromatic, and things like that, right? So you have the flexibility to negate them. And as you lay that out, what I thought was cool was like there are some times definitely where, it's like, sure, it's a little bit like a word game or like, word association. But the words themselves, people will start arguing about a little bit, where I was trying to hint at this one picture that was right next to an origami crane, but I didn't want people to pick the origami crane, so I said mine was not edgy. And so it took a little time, but then our friend Jonathan was like, wait, there are edges on the origami. I think she's going for the other one. So that was very gratifying, sort of using like alternate definitions of words occasionally, which you would do in like So Clover when you're trying to, which is another one of our favorite games, or sort of word association games, where you have to describe a connection between two cards with a single word, and sometimes you're using like multiple layers of meaning, which is really fun. And then the first time I played Word Traveler, I was playing and I described this bag of trash because it was in New York, and that was one of the pictures, and I said it was not aromatic. So then there was an argument with the people trying to decide, like, well, trash definitely smells, and then people were like, but I think aromatic means it smells good, and then they had this argument, and I was like, when I finally could answer, I was like, yeah, aromatic has a positive connotation. And like, no, you're not right. And then we had to go look it up, and then I was like, see, I was right. Don't doubt me. So
well, yeah, and it's cool that you can like do that thing where you look at the cards that somebody did not use, and you can sort of like a Deception Murder in Hong Kong, where you say, oh, okay, they decided not to use that one, so that one, we need to think about that too.
Yeah, I didn't do that the first game, but I was like, oh, that's really interesting, like addition to the
deduction element, yeah. And apparently, like, people were saying on BGG that it's very much similar to this other game called Mystic Paths. So if you've ever played that, it's a similar game where you're trying to follow a path that you only know about, and you're trying to, that everybody else has to figure out what you're trying to deduce from what you're telling them your word is that you're heading towards.
Yeah, we had Mystic Paths, and it was enjoyable. There were some rough edges to it, I think. And so I think Word Traveler is a smoother experience, personally.
Word Traveler is a much cleaner game. Like, Mystic Paths, it's a nice idea. It's a neat idea, but they didn't design the interface really well. So there's like things that you need on the board that were covering some of the words. And you're just like, I was almost thinking like, man, this game would be great, but I might 3D print my own pieces to kind of get a design around their own design shortcomings.
And it has miniatures, like, for some reason. Like, it doesn't seem like thematically why.
Word Traveler is much simpler because you're on the map, there's the cardinal directions. There's north, east, south, west. And so you're telling with those arrows that Mike mentioned, you're going in one direction. So it's like from your starting marker, we should mention it's a cooperative game, right? So once you kind of set your clues, then the rest of your team has to kind of guess, okay, he pointed this arrow north, and it gave these two clues. It's aromatic and it's also round. So then we're looking at all the different stops north of his place, of his piece, to figure out what they might be. But then the next one might be east. So then you're like, okay, from all of these possibilities going east, what do his next clues contain? So if you wanted to, if they weren't clear, you could kind of like check out the next few arrows and then try to deduce backwards where he could be talking about. So that was all a lot of fun. But the board is not too big, and the pictures on the board at each stop are kind of varied enough that it's like, okay, it works. I think they designed it well in keeping it very simple, because it could be, I think Mystic Paths had this problem. It's like, it's just more complicated. It's more gamery, but it's also like not as elegant as Word Traveler is.
The only negative I have, I was just going to say, the only negative I have to say is that the box art, I think, is just not great. Like, the board art is fantastic. I think they could have done a better job with the box cover.
Yeah. And a game I wanted to talk about was Illilterati, which is another cooperative game. And I think like the truest word game in the sense of being a word game out of the ones we're talking about today. So in Illilterati, you are fighting against the Illiterati who want to burn all the books, basically. So there's all these like villains that you're fighting. And so when it's the team's turn, you have a bunch of different letters in front of you. You're going to draw some more, and we have like three minutes, I think, just to make as many words as possible that are legal, while leaving very few in the library or the remainder or discard pile, essentially, right? We want to keep it at 3 or fewer letters in the middle, while we each have unique goals too. So as we are trying to make words, great, at least you want to make words and like not leave too many leftover letters. We each have a separate book or a goal that we're trying to bind. And so they might be goals like, oh, you need to use at least 8 letters with this type of suit of letter, and they all need to be names of brands or restaurants or whatever that theme might be. So yes, you want to make some decent words, but at the same time, if you have this separate goal and that's how you win, we each have to be able to bind 2 different books and then collectively do one major epic goal at the end. So it feels a little bit like a cooperative individual fight and then a boss fight at the end of the game, right? So I've played it twice now, I think, with different groups. And as a word game, it's really been fun and challenging. I think the distribution of the letters is pretty good. Like, you are constantly getting more letters. And then at the same time, the villains every round are attacking too. So they're going to make you discard specific letters or words that might make things a little bit more difficult as you continue. So that if you go on too long, then the villain attacks sort of stack and become more and more difficult. We're pretty awesome at it, I think. So we didn't have that issue. But, I've had a good time with it. I love word games in general. I think my issue is I want to play everybody's goals for them, so I apologize for that. But it is a cooperative game, so, I try to do my thing first, and then if I have time, I try to help out some other people. So,
yeah, the way it's set up, I played it a few times now. The way it's set up is because all players have to focus on their own goals, right? But also, as a group, like you said, not leave too many letters unused by the time the timer's done, because that's how you're going to lose the game that way. So I think it's kind of neat that there's kind of 2 things going on at the same time. Like, the group goal, you're all working together. Like, okay, hey, there's 5 letters in the middle. We have to get rid of 2 of them. And so everyone's kind of working together to figure that out. But your individual goal, if everyone's working on individual goals, you really don't have a lot of time to look at other people. So I think there could be a little bit of the quarterbacking problem in the typical co-op games, where it's like some person could kind of run it for everyone else. But
Christina.
But I think it's really hard to do in this game, because it's like, especially the first few rounds, it's like everyone's just focused on their own. Like, you need the full 3 minutes just to solve your stuff. You might be asking for letters. Does anyone have an S they could borrow? And then maybe I have an S, but I have to break up another word to give you that S. And you could do that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of live, like, pivoting, making new strategies and going in different directions. But then it's weird, because what little quarterbacking there is in this game, I actually kind of like, and I think it actually makes the game better. So what I mean by that is, if Christina, your first book that you bind has categories like what Christina mentioned, like I had to use 8 letters to form words of things that fly, like bird or whatever. You had one that was
things that live underwater.
Things that live underwater. So yeah, there's all these fun categories. But then the second book you get is more based on the word itself. Like I had one that's like, all my words have to have an equal number of consonants to syllables. And then Christina had one about alliteration.
Consonants and vowels.
Consonants and vowels. Wait, what?
That'd be really hard.
When I say consonants and did I say syllables? Why did I say
That's okay.
consonants and vowels? Sorry. But then, so if Christina was the first one, she's excellent at word games. Like no one's going to beat her at any word game ever. But she finished her 2 books early. But before we can get to the final boss book, the rest of us have to finish. So then she could help. But that help was kind of welcome because now it's like, okay, Christina's not telling me what to do, but she's offering help and suggestions. And she has a look. She can now, so that second set of eyes at my letters, other letters around the table. And then she's like, oh, what if Jonathan gave you that J and then you could spell this thing and do this? So it's like, it's not quite quarterbacking. It's just like more people available to help you accomplish your goals. So yeah, it just kind of flows natural. I don't even know if that was their intention, but I think just the natural play of it's like, okay, as you fall behind, you get more help from the other players. And then you hopefully can all conquer the final boss together. And yeah, so it's just really cleverly designed and it just flows really, really well.
Yeah, I really appreciated having you on our team, Christina, because like without you, I don't think we would have won. I'm not very good at word games. I don't play a lot of word games. I like word association games, like you were saying, but as far as like Scrabble, and especially when you add they have a timer, a 3-minute timer that you have to stick to. So real time, you add real time and word, building words, like that's just my kryptonite. So I always forget, my whole vocabulary just flies out of my ears as soon as the timer starts. So having someone like Christina to sort of help guide everybody and looking around the table and helping out and the fact that it was a co-op really was good because then you can, say, oh, you don't need that. I could use that letter and you can use this letter. We can trade letters and work it out was really cool. I think this could work almost as a team-based game if you have one copy for one team and another copy of Illilterati at a different table for a second team, and then whoever is finishes the boss first or something like that.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
That'd be really fun. Yeah. Except I call Christina on my team.
Yeah.
What's cool is the rules actually allow you to look on your phone and look things up, but you just can't pause the timer. So you could sacrifice certain time to go on Google and look up word. And you found some kind of fish.
Yeah.
What was that fish?
Palamano or
It is a
something
fish.
Pompano,
I think it's a tasty fish too. I think I've eaten it. Anyway.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this? But it's a legal word and you're allowed to do it. You just lose some time because you're searching on your phone instead of spelling things.
Well, yeah, I like that they didn't allow 2-letter words, which is always I hate that about Scrabble players. Is
that's not even about words anymore. It's just memorizing a list of allowed 2-letter words, I think. So
right. And so it was 3-letter minimum. So I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the art is great too. I don't remember who does the art, but it's this really vivid, sort of bold, cartoony,
comic booky. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a really rich comic book sort of style that I really like.
Yeah.
So I really like this game, and as Shu has mentioned, certain word games nobody should play me at. You don't play me at Boggle. That's just not gonna make you feel good. But for a cooperative game like that, then I could be a nice coordinator. And I'm glad it wasn't overstepping. I was worried about I don't want to take over your game. So, but because there were enough people there, I can't give everybody all of their words, which was nice. I was there just to polish and move letters around and stuff. So we accidentally won the big boss fight faster than we thought because it was a really sort of a tough challenge. We had to use 10 letters and all of those letters had to form words that were synonyms of each other. So we strategized and things like that, but we were oh no, we're going to run out of time because you still can only leave 3 leftover letters at most in the middle. And then Shu was okay, well, we just have to survive. 3 of us had the goal down, but we have to all get it down to progress. And then Shu was I have this one big word. He had reside, and he just had to use up some extra letters. And then he's only had 3 letters. And I was you could make a slightly longer word. And I just happened to change it to stay. And then I was they happen to be synonyms. We won. And everybody high-fived.
That was really cool.
Yeah, it was just like an accidental moment, but it felt good still.
Well, yeah, the synonyms ending was a really cool like way to bring it to a finish, because it was just like, I don't know, when we started that round, I was like, I don't know how we're gonna come up with enough synonyms and not screw this up, but we did it, and it was a cool moment.
Yeah, each player, just so, to be clear, each player had to fulfill that individually, not all as a group. So that, but it's still really hard because you have to do 2 words at least, right, that are synonyms that will use up at least 10 letters each. So, but the artist, by the way, I looked it up, Audrey Jung. So you mentioned the artist.
Shout outs. Yeah,
cool,
super cool.
Yeah.
And
then before
word game.
Oh,
right?
Sorry. Yeah. My game. One more is ContraBanter, which Mike, we didn't get a chance to play with you, but Christina and I played with other people earlier. So ContraBanter. The concept is so simple. It sounds so neat. So basically, they're teams. There's either teams of 2 or teams of 3, and then you can draw these words and you can put them on little stands and put them in front of you. And then your goal is just that you have a limited amount of time, and you're just going to have a conversation either amongst yourselves or with other people at the table, and you have to sneak these words into the conversation, right? So it's ContraBanter, like contraband, but the banter, right? So it's a really silly, fun idea where it's just like one of them is like monitor, right? Like I remember specifically playing this game with our friend Wyatt, and then it's like he'd start talking like, yeah, and you're just saying BS, right? You're just like talking through, and you're trying to hide these words. So like my friend Wyatt was asking about our podcast. He's like, oh yeah, what do you have to do with your podcast? You have to set up a lot of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I knew what he was doing. He was like setting me up. And then, I was like, yeah, we have like, we have our computer, we have microphones, we have some lighting. And then I have all our notes up on the computer monitor, and we have all this stuff. And you try to make it flow in naturally so the other team can't catch on. And then they're just like, that's a suspicious word. And then, so if anyone team catches it, they have guesses. So they flip over a guess card and they're like, stop. Your secret word is microphone. And then we're like, nope. And then we continue the conversation. And then everyone's just trying to catch these words, right? So it might sound too simple, but what the beauty of this is, if you get it right. So like in that example, okay, one of our 3 words was monitor. They didn't get it. We score a point because no one caught us. You keep that word into the next round. So the next time your team is up again, you have to work monitor into the conversation again. And then sometimes it becomes obvious, right? It's like, why would you keep saying, you said monitor twice now, that's the secret word. So then people are trying to bust you. But if you do it well, we've had teams that they go 3 rounds, the same word. Like Christina, I think you had one of these where it's like 3 rounds in a row, your secret word went through and no one caught that secret word. Like, I can't
remember what it was. So I used it in different ways, and like, it just sort of slid under the radar, and nobody noticed that. I was pretty proud of it, so it was good.
Yeah, so just a pure social, silly party game, and then you could draw new words. With the ones that you didn't get, you are allowed to discard and draw new ones. One time, one of our words was dino, like dinosaur, and then why it just almost gave up. Like he was just like, hey, shoot, what do you think about the Jurassic period or something like that? Cause we're running out of time. He was just like, just let him try it, and maybe people won't call me out on it. And then we gave up that word. We're like, we're not going to try to sneak in dino into the conversation. But you are allowed, if the secret word is dino, you are allowed to say like dinosaur, for example, and those kind of things work. So that's the basic game, and it was a lot of fun, and you're just trying to catch people, and then if you can sneak one in, it's super rewarding because you're just like, if you're high-fiving your team, because we were playing teams of 3 the last time we played, and then you're just like, if you can sneak one in, you're so happy because you're just sweating. You're just like kind of, everyone at the table, all the other players are just listening to you intently, and you're just like, once a word gets by, you have this moment of relief, but you have to play it off. You can't act like, oh, I just said the secret word. So it's a lot of fun in that way. But there is a more advanced mode that we played with immediately, and I just recommend anyone play with because it doesn't make the game that much difficult. So if you want to play advanced mode, there's another deck of cards of words that is common for the whole table. No one could say these words. So the word, I think one of them was talk.
And
Was an Excel.
Well,
Another one was
those were
yes.
hard.
Very common words that are everyday conversation. So these are different from the ContraBanter cards of like the words you're trying to sneak in. This is just like, okay, we flip over this card in the middle of the table. It's the word talk. If anyone says it and anyone else catches them saying it, they get to keep that card for the moment. And then, but other people could take it from them. So this is like this opposite of hot potato. You're trying to grab this card and you'll score a point if you end up the round with this card. So, and then we were like, we had to adjust the rules a little bit because I'm like, I said the word talk. Our friend Nam called me. He said, "You just said talk," and then someone's like, "You just said talk." So it's just like these hilarious situations where you're trying to catch the other team's secret words at the same time. You're trying not to say the bad word in the middle, and the really common words that are hard to say. Yeah. So like, when the two are going on at the same time, it makes it just really hilarious at the conversation at the table. So yeah, that's ContraBanter. Christina, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it was a fun little party game. I think one of my good friends was on my team, Amy, and so we just started like talking a lot about food very quickly, throwing in like, because you start just throwing in like, what can I talk about where I could just use the weirdest words all the time, basically. So you go on like the Jurassic theme that did not pan out. We were like, okay, what about on vacation? And then we were like, these are the activities we would do. And so you can try to work in like a lot of red herrings too. We're like, why would she say scuba suit? And like, that wasn't the word I was trying to say, but you know, you're like misdirect people and stuff. And then so the more you can make a weird conversation, I think, then the more that your goal can go through. So I had a good time with that. I found the extra advanced mode added a lot more difficulty for sure. We did really well sneaking some words in, but not great at stealing those that extra stuff. So we came in second because of that. But it was a fun little like extra thing to watch out for, depending on your crowd that you're playing with. So yeah, it was a fun time. Weird conversation.
Sounds really funny.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is I think we didn't try it this way, but I'm like, I gotta imagine this game would be a lot more fun if like people were drinking or whatever it is that you do.
I'm gonna have to bleep that.
But I think if people were just like in a looser, like you're not focused so much and you're just going to make more mistakes, I think that game would probably be a lot more fun.
It'd be a riot. Yeah. Does it come with a lot of word cards?
Yeah.
That's crucial. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it always like a one word thing?
So your team's secret words that you're trying to sneak into conversation, you have 3 of them that you could work in. And then the one word, the advanced mode word in the middle that no one's allowed to say and everyone's trying to catch people saying that word, that's just one word.
Okay.
And that's its own deck of like, again, super common words that are going to come up inevitably in conversation.
That sounds funny.
Yeah. And then, so as we wrap up this topic, just want to make clear for full disclosure that these were all media copies sent to us by their respective publishers. So just want to make sure that was clear.
Thanks for all the good times. And we have Mike's topic. What's Mike's topic today?
So I'm here to bring more upgrades into your life, more ways to spend your money on your favorite hobby. In the past, I think I've talked about, or most people know about things like, upgrading to metal coins from your paper money or like getting poker chips, stuff like that. And I've talked about that on previous episodes. So this time I wanted to talk about a little bit more of like your game room thing as situation that you can upgrade. Because I'm always looking at my games and I'm trying to figure out like, how do I elevate everything to the next level? So for the first one, I don't know about you guys, but I hate when I'm playing a board game and I'm sitting on the opposite side as the table of the table as the board is facing. So I can't see the beautiful art and I can't look at the game because I'm looking at it upside down because I'm looking at it from the top of the board instead of like from the front, the way the artist designed it. And some games, like you're only 1/4 of the table is getting to look at the board the way it was meant to be looked at. So I bought a huge Lazy Susan that's made of glass, and so you can see anything that falls underneath it. And it's big.
That's smart.
And it's big enough. It's like a restaurant size. It showed up. I bought it on Amazon, and it showed up covered in like a bicycle tire that they had cut in half just to protect it. And somehow it managed to get all the way here from China. and didn't break. And and it's awesome because now everybody who plays, whoever's turn it is, like if we're playing a choir or something where it's important to look at the board state from a certain, from the perspective of, from the first player, anybody can just shift the board, and you have extra space on the top and the bottom most of the time for components. And so I tend to have bowls of the components so that they spin around with the board. So whoever's turn it is, they get to see the board from their perspective, and then pick up the components, and it's easy, and you can like put stuff on it. Like here's some money from the bank. I know you need $1,000. Here you go. Slide it around.
Do you ever have any problems with like someone spinning it too quickly or stopping it too abruptly and then things shift?
It's too heavy, I think, for that to be a problem. But perhaps with I wouldn't use it for like certain games, like a dexterity game, where where falling things can be a problem. And it does occasionally get in the way when you're trying to play a trick-taking game. It's kind of like, okay, let's get this giant piece of glass out of the way because it's in the way. But I think it's been a huge help for like Euro games and anything where the board is important to look at.
So you generally just leave this on your game.
I leave it on the table most of the time. Yeah.
Mike's house is now a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, come on over.
We actually did buy, I bought a small Lazy Susan that we do use sometimes too. It's like a little wooden one that I just put in the middle of the table for certain games where, what was the game? It was the Marvel one.
Marvel Remix, the Fantasy Realms.
Marvel Remix and the Fantasy Realms. Those games where you're discarding to the middle and everybody needs to read the cards, right? So then you have to like pick them all up and look at them. But you can put them on the Lazy Susan and just sort of spin them. So they're like all facing out and looking at it. And we actually did use it for a dexterity game, where I know our friend Steven does. I think the climbers, you're adding certain blocks and sometimes at different angles and stuff. So here you can easily spin it pretty steadily and not have it fall apart and everything. So there are definitely some interesting uses for them. We don't have a big one for sure, but I have pulled out that small one, and I've been pretty proud of it when we have used it.
Nice. Yeah, I think I started out with a small one, and I used it for climbers, and I realized how great it was. And then I tried to fit like a whole Euro game on that thing, and I was just like, oh, I wish I had a bigger one. So that's what led to this purchase.
We haven't played on this big Lazy Susan yet, so next time.
No, next time you come over, you'll have to check it out. So the next item that I wanted to mention was, I showed you guys this on the Slack channel. But so I went to Target one time, and they have a little seasonal section at most Targets, I think, where it's like, they change the items constantly, and it's like usually $1 to $5 or so. And they had a little trophy that was like a golden chicken, and the plaque on the bottom of the chicken said "Winner, winner." Chicken dinner is the idea. And I was like, I want to buy that. Like, I'll just buy that and take it home, and then maybe I'll give it to somebody for a trophy or something when they win the game. And then at game night, which I do once a week with friends back home in Alameda, I told everybody, "Hey, hold the chicken. We'll take a picture of you with the game if since you won." And then it became a tradition. And so every time whoever wins a game at game night, it's their turn, to hold the chicken, and it's so fun because everybody looks so proud. And my friend was like, my friend's wife was like, he loves showing me the pictures when he wins of him with the chicken. So it's become a tradition now, and I think it started to spread on our Slack channel. Like other people I'm noticing are now starting to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's a really clever idea. I think if we find the right trophy for us, we're gonna probably do something similar.
We could just reuse my spelling bee trophy from the 6th grade. That's up there.
Sure. Anything that Target has tons of stuff like that. I looked at some other places and I see them everywhere. Like little trophies that are just for fun. It's just something like that.
Yeah, or it's good for like social media and stuff like that too.
Yeah. All right. So, and the last upgrade that I wanted to mention was first player tokens. I've kind of gone a little bit crazy with those. So I've been going on Amazon or, Etsy, and anytime I see something that looks really cool as a first player token, like I bought this train bank that's like made of metal. It's huge. It's like this big if you're looking at the video. And they offered like a, what do they call it? The inscription of a name, like laser etched inscription.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, instead of like, Michael Zipkin, I said first player. so whenever we play Railways of the World, it's important to know who the first player is, because that's going to trigger, that's how many turns you have left in the round. So it gets passed around all the time. So I was like, I want that. So I paid I think $40 for a first player token, but it gets used for every train game now. And then I started branching out, and now I have a knight that's 10 inches tall or so. And he's got a shield. And so anytime we're playing a medieval game, you have that one. And when I was in Hawaii, I bought a little tiki god, same, about 10 to 12 inches tall. And so they all now sit on my shelf together, and it's a nice little arrangement. And it also kind of explains the kind of hobby, as, from the sort of themes that are popular, from knights to trains to, I have a rocket ship, and, so it's fun to break them out and let people try them. And I also, anytime I go to a gift shop or something now, I have 2 kids, and whenever we go to a science museum or something, I'm always walking around the gift shop looking at stuff, and I tend to think of it through that lens of would that make a cool first player token?
You're what genre can this token be for?
Right. Yeah.
I like that idea that you have a library of semi-generic but themed first player tokens, because as Shu may have mentioned, we have a library of tokens that we upgrade to, and I feel like a lot of people have maybe themed metal coins. Maybe not a lot of people. I'm overstating things because I live in a bubble, but some people will have themed coins for their games and stuff. But I do upgrade first player tokens for games that I really like, but I make them very specific to the game, so I don't have any that are more generic. But I really love this dice placement game called Genotype from Genius Games, because it's very sciencey, and the first player token was a cardboard spade, a garden spade. I was okay, sure, whatever, but I was that's not fun to hold, so I went and found a mini gardening set. So I have a tiny little metal spade with a wooden handle, and it's only maybe 4 or 5 inches long, and so that's my first player token now, and I'm very excited about it. And then very recently, so I've upgraded Arnak multiple ways. So I washed the little rune tokens. I have little moving compasses to replace the green
Those are
compass
so cool.
tokens. We obviously have metal coins for that too. And so I've been really distressed by the first player token, which is a cardboard alarm clock for some reason. So I really don't like that. And so finally I broke down, and I was okay, I'm just going to get a pocket watch. So I bought a cheap pocket watch on Amazon for $8, and it's really cool. It's all you click the little button on top and it opens, and that's my new first player token. So I'm very excited.
Nice. Yeah.
But back to the topic, in terms of bigger, wider upgrade things, we kind of do something similar to
with
Mike
your tokens, exactly.
With our coins specifically. So similarly, so what if people tend to maybe they'll get a game that has a deluxe version with metal coins, or you might get metal coin upgrades for a game. But because we have so many games, we're I've always wanted, before we moved into our current home, I said, if I have the room someday, I want to do 2 things. I want to have a pool of coins and a pool of resource tokens. So the coins, what we did was okay, here's some, we went shopping online for generic coins that would fit a more classic Euro style game. So a more European, maybe a little older looking. And then eventually, so we've grown to, we have science fiction coins, we have fantasy coins, we have Egyptian coins,
Japanesey,
we have Asian coins, Asian themed coins, and then a couple Western themed coins, and things like that. So, and some of these either you buy from places I think the company's called Top Shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them came from other games. Our Western coins were originally deluxe Carson City coins, but you could buy them through other places. And now we just use them generically for games like Great Western Trail.
Oh yeah, so, actually, just to interject a little bit, our Arnak coins we have in our pool too. I think they were from that Red Raven game, the little frog.
Yeah, I think Rome. I want to say
that's right. That's right. So those were great for that generic.
Yeah. So sometimes we take them from our games and take them out to use in this library, our own games, or we bought them from other games, or they're just generic coins that are meant for any kind of scenario. So now we have this pool, we have this entire top of one shelf that's all different kind of coins that you could just pull from and grab to use. And then some are generic enough, the Orleans, that the game Orleans, their old deluxe version had these coins that are they're really nice, they're chunky, and they're so generic looking that they work for like 50% of our games anyways. So we have that. And then we have another part of our room upgrade, which is the resource tokens. So years ago, Stonemaier Games they had these realistic tokens for games like Euphoria and then Scythe, where it's like the
with logs and
like they look like little wooden logs or like little pieces of rock, or they're all 3-dimensional tokens, or especially their metal ones, like a gold bar was like chunky. It's like actual metal. So these felt awesome, and we bought a ton of those. We don't cover every scenario possible, but we have like bottles of wine and bags of grain, and we have wood, we have stone, we have iron, we have all of these. So then for most of our games, we could pull enough resources from there to cover it. Sometimes we don't, because it doesn't look like how the art was drawn in the game, and it kind of would throw people off, but they work for a lot of different games. So those are my 2 favorite game room upgrades.
And I have one that kind of dovetails with that. I like big, chunky, huge cubes. Like there's so many games that come with these little tiny, 8mm cubes that are so small and fiddly to pick up and move. And so I went to like MeepleSource or the Board Game Modder, which is another website, to buy 12mm, like as big as a dice, like a cube. And so I have every color I have like 30 of every color to swap in and out. So it depending on the game. And I also have like little discs of every color. And so if there's a game with discs or cubes or pawns, like I've been like going crazy for like swapping them out. And I have them all in this big binder, kind of like similar to, except it's not laid out. It's kind of like you can zip it up and put it away. It's this binder called My Personality Bag that I found at Michael's. And it's just like probably for your jewelry, it's like I love the jewelry section of Michael's. It's like my favorite place to get stuff. And so, yeah, it has this My Personality Bag, and I just stuff them all in there, zip them up, and then like just take them with me if I want to go someplace, or anytime I'm like, oh, I could switch that component out, get a bigger one. And so, yeah, and so it's more obvious like on the table. It's easier to see, easier to pick up. Yeah, it's great.
Cool. Yeah, we have other things that are like general, like, hey, these are useful supplies. Like we have little bowls that we break out. I think we got this idea maybe from you, Mike, where we got these little cheap bowls from IKEA, and then you just use them for tokens, because it's so much nicer to grab resources out of like a nice physical bowl versus like a pile on the table or something like that. And it saves room. So we have like 6 of these that ready to go. We have some generic card holders, some from Amazon, I think, some from Board Game Geek Store, that people, there's once in a while you have games where people like, man, I wish I had a way to just have these all displayed out rather holding a giant pile of cards. So we have a bunch of those available that you could just grab from our shelf and then use for various games. And then one last thing I'll mention is Bezier Games. I don't know if they sell this anymore, but they had this thing called Start Player and Start Player Express, where Start Player is a deck of cards that'll present a scenario I don't like this one as much, but Start Player is like whoever could throw a card the farthest will be the first player. So to give interesting little challenges, or whoever has driven the farthest today, something like that. I'm making some of these up, but cool. You draw a card at random, and then whoever leads in that scenario presented is the start player. So it just kind of makes it more fun, and you have a little quick conversation about it. They also make a Start Player Express, which are just dice. There's one dice that's like highest, lowest, or largest, something like that. And then the other dice might be like number of keys in your pocket, or zip code, or phone number, or height, or something like that. So you roll these, you match the color. 2 dice will become paired up. And then it's like, oh, okay, who at this table has the highest number zip code, or something like that. So a little fun. We kind of stopped doing it because it's just faster. We just have like either we use the game Start Player thing, or we'll just ask Google or Siri to pick a random number between the number of players, and just it's much easier. And a lot of people use Schwazi, like the app, to pick their first player. But those are like 2 fun ways that you just keep in your game room.
I do like that idea too. And we'll use like a D20, whoever rolls the highest, or like pick a card from a standard deck of cards. Whichever card is, the highest gets to go first. But to go back to the bowls thing real quick, I've taken that a little bit further, and I've gotten like wood bowls, glass bowls, and metal bowls to fit the theme.
Oh my god!
So if we're playing science fiction games, we've got a metal bowl. If we're playing viticulture, we get the glass bowls. If we're playing like Agricola, we get the wood bowls.
Dang, Mike!
I take it to the next level.
Like peasant's shoe at home. What the heck?
We just got IKEA bowls.
No, they were from
bowls.
Target, and then some colored ones from Amazon. Well, one day we'll be Mike Zipkin. I don't know. So thanks for joining us today. I hope we get some people to upgrade their game rooms and make them all fancy and share their pictures with us. And
show their trophies off.
Sorry?
And share their trophy photos. I want to see.
Oh, yes. I want to see all the different trophies. I started Googling some already. We'll see. And then, thanks to Mike, who will be editing this later. Thanks, Mike. And now you can stop listening and go play a game. Bye, everybody.
Bye.